Hello and welcome to Day 3, December 3rd of Ghost Story Advent. Today I'm summoning up a fantastic story for you by Edgar Jepson. This book came out, here we go, I always do the mirror thing wrong. Summoned to the Seance, Spirit Tales from Beyond the Veil, edited by Emily Vincent, came out December 2024. This is a collection of classic ghost stories that center around some form of seance. And this story I'm going to tell you is perfect for this because some of the stories in here are light and humorous. Some of them are romantic, believe it or not. And some of them are quite creepy. This whole seance phenomenon grew out of the spiritualist movement, which started I believe at the turn of the last century with the Fox sisters and several others who were able to make a sensation about contacting the dead. And the next thing you knew, you had all these famous mediums that were attracting people who had lost children, who had lost family members, either to plague, to disease, to war.
Mother?
Maisie, are you there? Maisie.
I'm here.
And they wanted closure. They wanted to know that their kids were okay. They wanted to know that their family, they wanted to talk to them one more time. And unfortunately, as with all things, there's the people who really truly wanted to help the bereaved. And then there were the charlatans. And most of them were charlatans, but not all. And so the question here is, which camp are you in? Are you in the believer, it's real, or are you in the, oh, no, it's all a hoax, or is there a place in between? We're going to take a quick detour for a second. One of the most famous of these mediums was Helena Blavatsky. She lived from 1831 to 1891. She was a Russian mystic, and depending on who you talk to, she can be dismissed as a charlatan, or you can say that she was the real deal, but sometimes resorted to trickery if she needed to. What I found it fascinating was that I read this book about her by Henry Steele Olcott. Now, it was written after she died. So if he was trying to tout her abilities when she was in fact a charlatan, it doesn't really make sense. Why would you do that? She's already dead. And he wasn't that big of a deal, so I don't think he made a lot of money off writing this book. He writes about her with glowing admiration and describes things that happened in his presence that don't really have a good explanation. He really believed in her, or at least it seems he did in this book. And she started a theosophical society that is still continuing on to this day. There's a large chapter in Tallahassee, not too far from me, in fact. So I have a sort of fascination with her, and I do recommend this book if you ever go down that rabbit hole, because he really thought she was the real deal. She did write 5 ghost stories, which unfortunately were not terrific, but her life and her legend are amazing. I return you now to our regularly scheduled programming. Now, the fabulous part about this story by Edgar Jepson called Mrs. Morrel's Last Seance is that in the opening, we have a omniscient narrator, we never find out, male, female, what, who has attended Mrs. Morrel's seances for 2 years running, and says, as with the great ones, sometimes Mrs. Morrel will resort to trickery, magic things, gimmicks, because either the spirits aren't cooperating, or she's exhausted and just doesn't need the drainage of having a real experience. However, she's the real deal. So on a good day, you're going to get the real deal. This story is only 12 pages, and I really can't tell you a whole lot about it because there's so much that's set up early on that precipitates out at the end. And you have to decide for yourself what happens in this seance. Was it some weird trickery, or was it the real deal? And I think it's fairly obvious, but there's enough information to go either way. Basically, the gist of it is that a couple has showed up. Nobody knows who they are, and they have lost a daughter. They really want to get in touch with their daughter. And Mrs. Morrel behaves rather strangely. Remember, our narrator has watched Mrs. Morrel perform these seances for 2 years, but notices some extra stress on her body, some extra things that she's never done before. And sure enough, a little girl shows up and goes to her mother. Now, I can't tell you anything else, but this is one of the scariest stories that I've ever read. And personally, I've been to 2 different seance-like things where somebody decided to summon something and they thought it was a lark. And then something came and they didn't know how to get rid of it. So personally, I find this very scary because I am a believer, but you don't have to be at all to enjoy this story. It's really, really good. It's so well constructed. The narration of it seems breezy and light, like you're talking to somebody. But if you read it twice, you realize what craft is behind it, that everything is detailed, just dropped in there, just so nicely. It's delicious. And I've got a horrible sore throat, so I'm going to leave the rest of this up to a video, but very best wishes. And you'll see me again later in the month because I'm going to do another funny one. Well, not really funny, but not scary, out of the same book. Bye! Mrs. Morrel's last seance was written in 1912. W. Jacobs' story, The Monkey's Paw, was written in 1902, published in Harper's Monthly. So that's 10 years that story floated around. Now, I don't want to give too much away, but if you're familiar with The Monkey's Paw, I do see something to think about. While the story here on paper ends with the aftermath of the seance and the chaos and the narrator and a skeptic talking about what they just witnessed, the story ends there in the room with that. But consider what isn't said at the end of the story, and I'll leave you with that. I honestly couldn't find a whole lot of biographical information on Jepson, except that he was a very prolific author. He wrote about 50 novels. And of note, he was in a particular social club called the Square Club that had some other very well-known authors in it. One last observation is that I am a sucker for a seance story. I think that as a trope, it just has so much possibility. You have a given potential element of supernatural. You have a probability of, at the very least, distorted truths, if not trickery. And you have what people's expectations are. You have just all kinds of possibilities with the just setting up a seance scene in a story. And so anything about a medium or a seance, I'm there. I'm in. I gotta read it.
Mommy? Mommy, is that you? Where are you? Mommy?